Welcome to Debating McDebateface. I'll be your host, CyberWitchLexi. I use she, her pronouns, and you can find my work at twitch.tv/CyberWitchLexi. Today, for the very first episode of Debating McDebateface, two titans will square off in what is promised to be the most brutal, violent, and sadistic blood sport ever known to man. In the left corner is Suck My Opinion, an Alabama-based YouTuber with a penchant for poetry and socialism. In the right is Re-Education, the Canadian activist king extraordinaire. Gentlemen, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up? It's Aaron. So I'm from the show Re-Education, and I use he, him pronouns. And you can check me out at youtube.com/deadheadanimation. Even though it's Re-Education, don't worry about that. And I'm ready to fight. I'm ready for this totally real, epic battle. This is going to be like Thunderdome. It's going to be a gladiator match. It's going to be absolutely unbelievable. And now you're going to hear from my opponent.
What's up, everybody? Suck My Opinion. Poet, YouTuber, entertainer. Uses he, him pronouns. Trying to push leftism to victory. YouTube channel, Twitter. Check out my video, Fun Time. We're ready to go. We're ready to have some fun.
All right, so I guess for our first topic of conversation here, we're going to be talking about the SJW left versus the dirtbag left. So let's hear it from you two.
Sure, yeah. I'm still wondering what exactly it means to be a dirtbag leftist or to be an SJW leftist. All of this really, to me, just sounds like more of the same sort of thing that's been going on for years, ever since, well, before 2016. But that I think 2014, 2015 is when you started to hear the SJW thing really start to kick off. And I think it's exactly the same thing now. I think that people are using the SJW thing against people that they don't like. I think they're using the dirtbag leftist against other people that they don't like. And I don't think that there's a definitive definition for what exactly these two terms mean. So they annoy me. And I think that for the most part, we should be getting away from using broad statements on what people are, putting them into groups. And we should start focusing more on individuals and start focusing more on unity rather than pointless division.
Well, I'm with the SJWs all the way. Social justice warlord, I'm all with them. I think we need more social justice warriors everywhere. So I don't know. I think first off, we need to stop using this word in a derogatory manner. I mean, the world's filled with pain and suffering. We need more SJWs all over. We need just a SJW machine just to generate some hone in, just keep shooting them out. So, but I think the dirtbag left is the left that doesn't understand that I don't think they get that virtue signaling and stuff like this is a good thing. They are feeding into a right-wing narrative. They letting the right frame the narrative when they say derogatory things about SJWs.
So you would say that your definition of a dirtbag leftist is someone that basically uses right-wing framing rather than left-wing framing when it comes to social issues and that sort of.
No. This is what I would say. These people who quote unquote call themselves dirtbag left is that they will look at behavior that it may be annoying, but it's good intentions, it's good goodness in it. We want the world to be more egalitarian, and then they'll say that they're quote unquote crazy. They'll say that they lost their mind, they're annoying. When they, I mean, a lot of them when they talk about social justice warriors, it seems like they're it seems like somebody in the right wing is just feeding them words to say. They're not, they completely, they're not seeing how it's used as a frame. Maybe they don't know. I'm telling them now.
You know what? I'm going to do something very strange in a debate because I'm actually going to somewhat agree with you. But I think that for the most part, when it comes to the right wing framing to a lot of these leftist ideas, when you're talking about the dirtbag left, I do understand what you're saying. And I think that a lot of that probably comes from just the years in which the right wing have been able to dominate the discourse when it comes to social issues. So, like I was saying, all the way back 2015, 2016, all of a sudden you started to see this shift where everybody started to talk more about right-leaning stuff. You started to see more people identifying as right-leaning or centrist. And you started to see this push towards hating SJWs and thinking that they're all insane and thinking that they're bad people and bad hombres and that sort of thing. But I don't. I do see that happening on the left to a certain extent. There are definitely people out there that use that right-wing framing. But it really depends on what we're talking about here. So are we talking about people that are apolitical, that don't really understand things? And if so, are they ignorant to the more social justice aspect of social discourse? Or are they doing it intentionally and they're doing it to start problems? They're doing it to start drama. They're doing it to get a rise out of people. I think that a lot of this stuff has to do with more contextual situations rather than like I was saying in my opening statement, than just identifying broad swaths of people as either SJW or dirtbag leftist. But I definitely do agree with you that we do need more social justice warriors out there. The whole point of being a social justice warrior way at the very beginning was to fight for social justice. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of people miss when they're making this distinction between the two groups. So yeah, I definitely don't think that we should be focusing on these groups as being actual things. I think that they're more or less a way for us to be divided, and we should focus more on trying to stop that kind of division and being more unified, even if that means once in a while understanding that people might be doing something wrong and we might have to forgive them for that. Or if they continue to do stuff that is blatantly fucked up, then we eventually would have to go to something like, I don't want to say cancel culture, but if you're like a Louis C.K., then, you know, we're looking at cancel culture.
I'm saying we can have disagreements because the leftism I want to see is a multinational, multilinguistic, multi-ethnic group. Is going to be a coalition of that form. So they're going to be disagreement. I mean, this. I just kind of think that's utopian. That's kind of like to say everybody going to agree. It to me, it's a it's like it's like it's like you're framing the conversation, and whereas until we all agree, then we're gonna start doing something. We're never gonna agree on everything. So, but if it's not about bigotry or dehumanization, then I don't see the point. And I mean, we're gonna have disagreements, but there are many ways to take down capitalism. Capitalism is not going down by one method. It's going to be a multitude of methods thrown at it. So, you know,
a diversity of tactics, maybe a bunch of different things all at once is the way to attack capitalism. No, I totally agree with that. I think that's a very intelligent way to look at it. The thing is that when we're looking at having this diversity of tactics and having different people being able to use their different strengths in different ways to be able to fight capitalism, I think that's incredibly important. And we shouldn't discredit certain tactics that some people use because we find them to be not very useful, or we find them to be something that could be a hindrance. Because as anarchists, I'm an anarchist. I believe that you shouldn't have a vanguard. There isn't one specific best way to do things. It has to be a diversity of ways of doing things, or else you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, we need. There's going to be some leftists is going to be more bolder than other ones. Me particularly, I believe that leftists need to start framing the conversation. Right now, currently, we have a situation where leftists are presumed bad and have to prove themselves good. Right wingers are presumed to be good. We have to prove them bad. At the PewDiePie situation, even though he's, to me, like, that's a big situation to me, because we can't even identify certain things, like here's a guy, he has all the ties to the alt-right, but we cannot identify because we need a 1,000-page book of evidence to prove a right wing or wrong. But the slightest misstep of a leftist is over with. I mean, we're not framing the conversations. I don't understand that. If anything, we need to start being more bold and out there, not caring, because we're
I totally
correct.
agree.
We're correct. I don't know if anybody's unaware. We correct.
All right, let's I want to focus this a little on in the age of what we're calling cancel culture right now. What do you think is maybe the most appropriate way to handle disagreements between these two quote unquote opposing sides of the left?
Yeah, for sure. Like, okay, so the biggest problem that I think most of people have when it comes to cancel culture, when it comes to SJW left versus the dirtbag left, and all of these things, is we all feel like there's this mentality as though it's all or nothing. You either have to go all in on one side, all in on the other, and there's no nuance. There's no way for us to really understand the other person's perspective, the other person's way to look at things. And I think that cancel culture is incredibly damaging. One way that we can work towards criticizing people and not canceling them is to definitely be more generous in the criticisms that you have towards people. And if you notice that there's somebody out there that has a large subscriber base and they're getting hundreds of different comments all saying the exact same thing, you probably don't need to help dogpile on top of that and say the exact same thing as someone else, even if it seems as though it might be helpful or it might open up their mind to some criticism or something like that. So I think that's definitely a way that you could combat cancel culture. But the problem with cancel culture is that it's fueled by Facebook, it's fueled by Twitter, it's fueled by YouTube, it's fueled by this ingrained desire to see blood. And it's not necessarily like we want to do that on purpose, but it's something that's pushed because that's how the industries like Facebook, like Twitter, like YouTube make money, is they get people to see some drama, they spark a big controversy, that creates a bunch of clicks, and then everybody goes and watches that. So I think that trying to communicate with one another on a one-to-one level is a lot better than dogpiling and canceling. Obviously, canceling has its place, like I said before, in the case of Louis C.K., but the best way to go about not canceling people is to have a critical argument with them and not make it turn into this giant dog pile on social media.
Okay, first off, cancel culture is an attempt by right-wing buttheads to vilify any form of dissent. It's just a hyperbole to discredit leftists. So, first of all, cancel. What do you mean? Did you? I refer to cancel as losing a job or losing your house. Only people who cancel the people in America are right wingers. If you're gay, they fire you from your job. If you burn the flag, they kick you out of school. Stuff like this. They're only people who are canceling people. But they don't want to talk about that, because if we went to a straight argument base, they'll lose 100 to 0. So that's why they try to do this. When leftists speak up, they just say, "Oh, you're canceling me," when in fact they're just whining about something that's irrelevant. Nobody's getting canceled. The only people getting canceled in America are people who getting fired from their job, women getting arrested for abortions. These people getting canceled, and I kind of see they trying to make canceling a silly thing when right wingers are just literally destroying America. I don't understand. Like I don't understand how we can even like call a lot of things cancel culture. I feel we're going way overboard. I just take a step back and say, letting the right wing frame the conversation again. Just another incident of letting the right wing frame conversation.
Yeah, so I actually disagree with this statement. I do believe that there is a lot of right-wing framing of the conversation. I totally agree with that. But as far as agree 100% that cancel culture has always been a right-wing tactic. It's something that came out of religious groups that wanted to disown people who did things that were against the religion. It's a very much right-wing oriented idea. But I hear this all the time from many different people all across different platforms that nobody is getting canceled, that cancel culture doesn't exist. And I completely disagree with that. Cancel culture absolutely, I believe, does exist. It exists in spaces like YouTube, like Facebook, like Twitter. And what it does is, and a lot of people get this confused, and I think that...
Can you give me an example?
Give you an example. I'll explain
Yeah.
to you how it works first, right? And then you'll be able to see the examples right off the top. So a lot of people say cancel culture is when you kick somebody out of the left, right? That you're getting rid of them, or you're making them basically not a leftist anymore. And yes, you're right. That is something that doesn't happen. But what cancel culture actually is discrediting people that are on the left. So everybody goes in and attacks, say, a big name celebrity YouTuber, and they say all of these terrible, horrible things about them, even though there is a certain amount of people that are in the audience that look at that and say, you know, I'm not going to cancel them. I'm still going to listen to them. It's just a bunch of people having a disagreement. What you're creating effectively is a discredit campaign where everybody is coming in and discrediting this leftist voice and making them unpalatable to the rest of the internet. So it's not like we're kicking people out of the left. We're pushing new people away. And that, I think, is the bigger problem that we see with leftist cancel culture.
Okay, in my opinion, the people we pushing away are people who left leaning, and they seeing us being over exaggerated by these minuscule things. That's who we pushing away. Again, I think if you're saying, of course we're pushing right wingers away. Right wingers don't even think of people of color human beings, most of them. So I don't even this whole, again, it's always, I think this conversation is framed in a way that, hey y'all, this cancel culture thing is really going to make the right wingers uncomfortable. And I really don't think that, I don't care about that. I think what I'm going to do is to bring left leaning people in. Now, I applaud the people trying to get right wing people, but of course right wing people are going to look at how we don't worship people like gods. We don't do this. Of course, we're going to disagree. They're going to take offense with that. I mean, look at who the elected president. Of course, they're gonna find anything cancel culture. Who is complaining about it? That's what I want to know. That's I'm saying. Like, again, I just see the whole from a distance, just sitting back, seeing it. That man, you pushing people away. Who we pushing away? Like, revolutionary change is not going to be universally accepted. So who are the people who got canceled, and who are the people upset about this? I want to know. I want to know examples that we can show, because I don't know. I'm just looking back saying, I know a lot of people canceled that's losing their jobs. What? I mean, people don't like some things I say. I mean, we can talk about it. I'm not above criticism. We can debate. I don't care. You got one follower or two, I talk with you. So I could have, when somebody said something negative about me, I could have done this if I was the right wing push a narrative. When somebody said something to me negative on Twitter, I could have immediately said, I'm being canceled. And then the right wings will use me as an example to discredit left wing people. That's what I could have done. But it's that I see how this is happening. I control the narrative. I'm trying to control that leftists, people who are against capitalism. I'm not trying to let people use me as a pawn. They you know what I'm saying? That's what I see it as.
Yeah, no, and I totally understand what you're saying. You're basically saying that cancel culture is being used as right-wing framing to discredit leftists and make people look bad, and obviously the right-wingers are going to do that regardless. Totally agree with you on that. I totally agree with you on that, but that doesn't mean it's kind of like mild whataboutism, right? Where we're saying, well, the right-wingers are going to do this regardless, But also, you have to understand that it's not just the right wingers that are doing it; it's also the left wingers too, right? And you can see that all the time. And like you were asking before, who are we pushing away? Are we pushing away? And you're kind of alluding to, well, if we're pushing away right wingers, we don't really care about if we push them away or not. And even if we weren't, or even if we were, it's not really that big of a deal. Why would we want to be attracting right wingers? Okay, we should be trying to attract any working person who is interested in social justice or interested in trying to further worker rights, that sort of thing. Because to destroy capitalism, you need unity among all working people. But it's not about attracting right wingers. And I think a lot of people have that misconception that like there are a bunch of channels in BreadTube or something that are trying to convert right wingers. I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think that what most people are trying to do is convince normies. And that is where we have the biggest problem, is that normies don't use the same kind of language that leftists do, right? We get into really interesting, really complicated, really difficult topics whenever we're talking about things like cancel culture, like toxic masculinity, like rape culture, like all of these things. But without having the leftist lens, without having that leftist framing, without understanding what leftists mean when they're talking about those sorts of things, like I said before, the right wing has dominated the framing of every social issue for decades. And now we're going to jump in and we're going to use all of this different lingo, all of this different language, all of this different understanding to convince normies. And the normies are listening to that, and they've already heard the right wing framing, and they think the way that they have been portraying us on every platform is that, oh, the left has gone crazy, they're out of control, all of these things. I don't think the left is out of control at all. I think that we make a lot of rational sense. But when we do things like discredit our own people, like I was saying before with cancel culture and with larger YouTubers and that sort of thing, it creates this aura, it creates this situation where other people are looking in at that and saying, oh, well, everything that everybody else has been saying about these leftists is totally right. And I think that I don't want to allow the fascists and the Nazis to be able to have their cake and eat it too. I think that it is important for us to be fighting for social justice. It is important for us to be doing all of those things. And it's also important for us to be, uplifting voices, making sure that everybody that's disparaged is heard in a big way. And then also paying attention to optics as best as we possibly can, because sometimes optics do matter when you're trying to get out there and convince a lot of people. A lot of people have whenever I say optics, but that's kind of where I'm sitting.
I mean, I think it's already enough people in this country, in Canada, who are left wing. They're just unaware of capitalism. That's what we need to get them on. They are capitalism is not taught in public school in America. I'm sure it's not taught in Canada, and that's what we need to be, because I feel that I don't again, if you ignore me, if you quote unquote ignore me, still, I mean, normies can be center left, center right. I keep this generalization that normies are leaning right is wrong. I don't think most of them are concerned about the cancel culture. I don't think that's why most normies. I think most normies are not, because we present our argument in such a timid and weak way. I mean, first of all, I wish the left was out of control. I wish we was getting more upset. I wish we were what they were saying. We're not, I wish we were out of control, man. I'm trying to get it to happen with my channel.
Yeah, no, you know what? I totally agree with all of that. And like I said, that brings me back to this all or nothing topic that I was talking about before, where I don't necessarily think that all of the normies are right-leaning. I don't think that all of them are convinced by right-leaning arguments. What I am saying is that the radical left, the more left-leaning people, are fighting an uphill battle against propaganda, right? The biggest battle that we have to fight right now is the framing in which everything is being talked about, and that's exactly what you're talking about too. How everything is under this right wing framing, and that's not an accident. That's something that happens in the media, in government, in discourse all the time. So when we are as leftists trying to fight against that, we're fighting against millions of dollars. We're fighting against, well, billions of dollars, actually. We're fighting against all of the elites. We're fighting against all of these think tanks and groups of people that have worked together for years to disparage and destroy groups that are just like ours. And when we participate in the cancel culture, in the commodification of cancel culture, is what it basically has become with the advent of social media like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. When we participate in that, we are furthering not only putting more money in those capitalist pockets, but we're also creating a situation where they have an easy thing to point to with all of their millions of dollars and say, look, they can't even handle having conversations with themselves. They're cannibalizing their own. Why would anybody want to join up with them? Why don't you come join up with us and watch a bunch of PragerU videos? That's my biggest problem here, is that we have to get more on the same page. And I think it's important we're having these conversations here, because you and I agree with a lot of different things. But when it comes to cancel culture, when it comes to discrediting people on the left and that sort of thing, I wish that we could come to more of an agreement on that sort of thing, because I think it does exist. I think that it is damaging, and I think that we need to reduce it as much as humanly possible, and also create a narrative that is better, that's within our own framing, to actually fight the capitalist one that's out there right now.
So real quick, speaking of like framing and the way that a lot of our conversations actually end up getting framed by the right, do you think maybe we could come to more of an agreement here if the term cancel culture wasn't what we used, if instead we talked about it as like the mob mentalities of online communities? Is that something, I don't know, how do you two feel about that kind of idea?
I had made a video. I think we should paint ourselves as the victim. Be honest with you, like, I know it sounds kind of out there, but I think the leftists should paint ourselves as a victim, and we're getting mobbed by right wingers. That's what we should be doing. If anything, we're being categorized as the victimizers, but we're being victim. We're the victim, and I think that we the victim of the right. You know what I'm saying? That is a tactic that we can use to bring people to our side. That's why I think, number one, I mean, I'm being mobbed by racists in my channel all the time. You know what I'm saying? Please, New York Times, give me an article so I can go speak about socialism on your platform. I hope it. Why does it work like that for us? I'm trying to figure out. I'm getting mobbed. Please, I'm getting mobbed. Everybody, listen. I'm getting mobbed. Give me a platform so I can spew socialism to a wider audience, please.
You know what? I completely agree. I think that one of the main problems that we do have, and probably one of the main problems that almost everybody has when we're discussing anything, especially if the definition is loose, is we have the definitional error, right? Where we just don't agree because we think that one thing means something when it means something completely different to somebody else. So like when I was saying cancel culture, to me, means that we're using our platforms to discredit the left and make people less palatable to newcomers and that sort of thing. Other people still are going to classify it and say, no, cancel culture is actually just when you block somebody on social media. It just means that you're not going to pay attention to them anymore, and that sort of thing. And a lot of people say that cancel culture doesn't exist. So I think more in-depth analysis as to exactly what cancel culture is, how it affects us as a group, and some sort of consensus on the dangerous aspects of it that I think are clearly there, we need to focus on. And then we also need to not pay so much attention to the aspects of it that aren't dangerous, like blocking someone when they bother you, or like disagreeing with someone when they say something wrong. Those sorts of things are totally understandable. And again, this goes into this all or nothing mentality where it's like it's either this thing or it's that thing. And I feel like there is a large chasm in between that we can occupy when we do that sort of thing. And you know what? I really love the idea of playing the victim. That's a really smart idea, and I think that it's definitely something that we can do both of. Right? We can play the victim, and we can also play the hero strongman. We can do both things. Like I said, is important, and that's exactly what the right wing has done for years. That's exactly what rich elites have done for years. They, in fact, have more control, more power, more money, more resources than anybody on the planet, than the face of the scene. And yet, we're convinced in the media that they're just lowly business or job creators, and we shouldn't be picking on them. And anytime somebody says something that's against a rich people, it's equal to being racist or being sexist. That's the framing that they've already created. They've already been able to make the most powerful beings on the face of the earth seem as though they are just as easy to push around as little babies, right? So, and I think that we can do both things. I think that as being powerful, as being strong, as being independent, and having that aspect to us where it draws more aggressive, more strong-minded, more strong-willed people in. And then I think that we can also work on, playing the victim, or being more forgiving, being more honest, be honest regardless, being more kind, being more caring, and getting people to come in based on those things as well. Because leftism, though you can defend it easily with logical arguments any time of day, it is essentially based on a moral position, thinking that all people should be and are created equal.
Yeah, man. I think really last thing I say about this cancel culture thing is that what it has done, in my opinion, is it's put one form of anger to the forefront while ignoring the anger about economic issues, like where like they're writing articles about people being angry about what's going on Twitter, but they're not writing no articles about people being angry about the rising cost of housing, the rising cost of tuition, things of that nature. So when I see people making a lot of videos about this, I'll be like, yeah, that's cool, but this anger is all the way on the backs. It's not even in the building. It's all the way on the other cross street. The issue that is, in my opinion, more of a pressing issue, more emergent issue, is that the one that we're being counseled by the capitalist class. That's who is the prominent cancel culture is. That's putting poverty on you, attacking you with poverty. That's cancel culture. And I just see that these in the right wing understands that what I'm talking about is real revolutionary issues. So what the right winger does, he comes in and he try to break it down into it's something that's frivolous and silly. Because if we ever on the merits, the right winger never. That's what the right wingers do. They always try to paint the narrative into something silly, like they're canceling Christmas, things like this. While behind closed doors, they're enriching the fossil fuel oil barons. The private prison industrial complex, things like that. And when I see people talking about cancel culture and on Twitter and stuff, I'm like, man, that's just so wild to me that this has made it to the front of the newsstand. I don't get it. I'm just it's very odd to me.
Okay. Let's shift gears here for a second. Sorry, pulling something up here. So Aaron, you said that you are a anarchist, correct?
Yes, yeah, I am, yeah.
And suck my opinion. How do you define your political leanings, other than, or unless it is just socialist?
It's a leftist is I am sympathetic to the anarchist cause. I just consider myself a leftist, anti-capitalist.
Okay. So I wanna ask, how do you two feel about tankies?
Okay, I have mixed opinions on tankies. First of all, I made videos in the past saying that I don't necessarily think that tanky is a good word to use as well. Here I am, I'm canceling words all of the time, and here I am against cancel culture. I don't like using the word tanky because I believe that people start using it frivolously to refer to any Marxist, Leninist or Maoist or anybody like that. And it's just a way to disparage people and other them. If they say some take that you don't like, they put you inside of a box and they label you tanky. You get put in chud rooms for those sorts of things. And I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, but as many people have pointed out in the past, there is a certain faction of tanky leaning individuals who are more or less just fascists with socialist ideology. Well, with a socialist framing, right? Like I made videos about this in the past, where you'll have somebody that is basically portraying themselves with all of the socialist ideals, all of the socialist ways of thinking about things, but also at the same time, they're very strong about, oh, we think that everybody is too stupid to make their own decisions. We need to have the state make decisions for everybody because we just don't think that they're able to handle those sorts of things. And those sort of mentalities are around. So, but I think that they almost don't even exist. It's like Nazbols, right? There are a few Nazbols, but they're incredibly vocal, but an incredibly small minority.
This what I say, I'm a socialist. I want to see capitalism overthrown. But I also would say this. Let's say we overthrow capitalism. That in that period, that would be very turbulent times. What I'm not going to be with when we overthrow capitalism, if some guy whatever say, I'm going to be the supreme leader. Well, if that happens, I'm going to be working with some other people to take him out on a date. So, nah, I'm not with anybody coming in saying, this is how we running it, and if you don't like it, it's over with. That's not the kind of, I didn't get in leftism to bow down to no one. So I'm not with bowing down to no one. We can have workplace democracy, we can have all this out somebody coming in proclaiming themselves the supreme leader. That's not finna, I'm not with that at all. Like coup d'etat if that happens.
Yeah, I think we pretty much agree on that one.
Yeah,
We're
it
pretty much
sounds like some agreement. So we're gonna walk back for a second. Some people in chat, when you all were talking about the playing the victim or verbalizing it as being the victim, what do you mean when you say that? Let's get a clarification here.
Okay, what I mean when I say this, I made a video about this. Check this out. But what I'm saying is that left-leaning people, okay, who don't like the right wing, if we tell them, yo, we the biggest target, come protect us, come get with us, come join our movement. A lot of people see us as we're not the victims. Socialists are the most hated people in America. Every newspaper, there are no socialists on CNN. There are no socialists in the New York Times. There are no socialists LA Times or any newscast. We're the most stamped down voice in America. Okay. And other left-wing people who don't like right-wingers, who want to defeat right-wingers, will say, hey man, we're the main target. Come to our aid. Come join us. You know what I'm saying? You claiming that you don't like the right, well, come join us. We are the most stamped down. Why do you think that? If you don't like the right and the right hates us, well, then it seems that you kind of agreement with us. Just, come to our side, come to our aid,
So I partly agree with this, and I partly disagree with this, right? So I think that it is definitely a good idea, a good tactic that many people have used, many groups have used in the past to. I don't know if it might attract people, but I think for the most part, what playing the victim does is it also is a great way. It's almost like a rallying cry. It galvanizes the base. It makes everybody feel as though they have a joint sense either misery. They can commiserate with one another. They have that camaraderie based in desperation and that sort of thing. And I definitely do think that it galvanizes the base. I definitely do think it does that. But also at the same time, playing that card can also be used very in a very damaging way as well. Like I said, it can be used to galvanize your base and make everybody feel as though they're in a coalition because they're all suffering equally together. But that also creates an in-group, out-group mentality where we are the most oppressed class, and everybody that's outside of this is basically very privileged and that sort of thing. And I don't know what the chat would say about this, but that it could lead down a road that sounds similar to like I remember a couple of years ago it was called, I think, the Oppression Olympics or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly what the term for it is, but where basically everybody's competing with one another on who can be on who's got the most who has the least privilege, basically.
The Oppression Olympics, this is another term that is used over and over again to delegitimize real problems. That is, when somebody says the Oppression Olympics, they are not focusing on real issues, in my opinion. Oppression Olympics, what are you talking about? This is such a abstract term that's used to discredit people who pushing for social justice. That's what it's used for. Oppression Olympics. I mean, I don't know if you notice or not, but the right wing always playing things. But okay, they always playing the victim. They always claiming that, you know, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, claims every day he's been harassed. But then all of a sudden, we're going to tell people leftists, people who are fighting against mass incarceration, environmental racism, all police brutality, all things that have real consequences, real victims, real bodies. We're playing Oppression Olympics. This is just a terminology to discredit what we're saying. Because everything I just said is real, hard-hitting, emotional things. And the only way somebody can disagree with this is try to just delegitimize my entire existence. Say I'm just I'm just whining. I'm a social justice warrior. I'm playing Oppression Olympics. They never address my issues. And I don't understand. The right wingers are in the minority. I don't understand why we got to keep using their language. This is me personally. I don't understand why we got to keep using the right wingers' language.
Yeah, okay, so I definitely agree. That was probably the worst possible framing I could have used on that. But again, that is the way that things are certainly framed. But again, I do believe that this falls into this all or nothing category where we're thinking that anytime somebody says that anybody is, let's use the term Oppression Olympics, trying to compete in this Oppression Olympics, that none of their problems or struggles or anything like that are real. And I think that's quite the opposite. People's struggles are 100% real, and they 100% need to be fighting for equality, for social justice, for all of those things. And then there is also a faction of individuals that are out there that tend to play this card where they try to be more not woke. It's not like woke points or something, but where some people feel as though they're trying to portray themselves as being more oppressed or have less privilege than other people, so they can feel, I don't know, sort of like a sense of superiority in certain circles, right? Like I see this with a lot of like privileged white people that are in privileged white circles, that are in leftist circles, going around saying basically that, right? Where, oh, well, you know, I'm a quarter black or whatever, so my ancestors, they had this kind of oppression and that sort of thing. And again, I think that that's a problem with an all or nothing attitude. People definitely do have real problems. Nobody's going to deny that. Fuck, that's 90% of my channel. But then there is also a faction of people that take advantage of that sort of thing. And is that right-wing framing? Yeah, I guess that it definitely can be. We can also frame the right-wingers in doing the exact same thing, and I think that we do. I think that I certainly have many times on my channel in the past. So I don't think that it's, and I'm definitely not saying that there is such a thing as an Oppression Olympics, just to get that out there. I think the term is horrible and it's not descriptive at all. But in this specific instance, I think that's more or less what I mean, an all or nothing mentality rather than, you know, taking away some of their rights, tone policing them, if you will.
Okay, this is what I'll have to say. I'm gonna tell everybody in the audience who watching. I don't know if you know this. You may be aware, may not be aware, but currently, right now in North America, there is still extreme inequality. There's still state oppression. The police kills a person every day. The reason why we have riots, the reason why we're having so much friction in the world, and especially in America, is because the oppression is very segregated. Some communities are facing more segregation than others, and I think when they hear people from other communities talking about getting very dramatic, getting very emotional with it, it kind of throws them off. But see, like it's like I have been assaulted by the police. I live in Alabama, the poorest part of America. We don't, some places around here don't have sewage systems. I wouldn't trust my water supply. And things like this. So when people hear this, people can say I'm being dramatic, I'm being emotional, because in some places I'm being aware that people don't know about police brutality. They don't know about going to schools with no air condition. They don't know these things. They don't know how bad mass incarceration. I have 30 people that I know from my graduation class who've been arrested for nonviolent drug offenses. 90% of the drug arrests in Alabama are black. They may not know things like this. So when they hear people being very emotional, being very dramatic, it comes off as strange and weird, because they kind of say, where's that coming from? Because in what I see in my everyday life is not DEFCON 10, but in a lot of people's lives, I'm not saying I'm living in the worst position, but I've seen enough to let me know that currently, right now in America, there is extreme oppression that is getting a lot of people upset. It's the reason why we have riots in major cities. It's the reason why we have so much protests on college campuses. It's not because they want attention. It's not because they're trying to be celebrities. It's because there is real world victims in the world that do not be on television. Police kill somebody every day. The police frame people. People in our prison systems are dying because of hunger and lack of necessities. This is what's going on in America, but it's just not talked about a lot. And when you see somebody talking about these issues, I'm guessing that they're confused by it. They're like, where's this anger coming from?
Yeah, you know what? Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, just to add a little bit to that. The sixth most common cause of death in America right now of young males is being shot by the cops. Just as a little bit of a piece of facts for that.
That's painful. So, you know what? I think, for the most part, I think what it is too is it's not just a right-wing framing; it's also a white framing. When it comes to the media, when it comes to anything that you hear, you for the most part hear it through a white lens, and that's why you don't ever hear people saying or hear about the things that are actually going wrong, like you were saying in your area and in different parts of the United States. There are problems where water is a serious contaminated. It's seriously contaminated. People are having incredible problems. There are all kinds of places where there's where nobody will hire anybody. You can find work, and buildings are falling down. Like the infrastructure gets a grade of D plus. Like the United States is falling apart, but you don't hear about those. What you do hear about is things like I can't remember exactly what her name. I think it was Jessica Yanev or something like that. You hear about the most extreme versions of the left. You hear about the most extreme versions of white people, where they're basically doing this thing where they're competing in the Impression Olympics sort of thing. But you don't hear the framing from another lens. You don't hear the framing from somebody that lives in one of those neighborhoods that has to worry about buying bottled water in fear that they're going to get fucking lead poisoning, because they just don't go to those areas. The media just doesn't pay attention to any of that sort of thing. And that's 100% a major, massive problem. So yeah, I 100% agree with you on all of that. And as far as the Oppression Olympics thing goes, and as far as playing the victim goes, like I was saying before, I think that there is a lot of nuance that needs to be paid attention to with that sort of thing, and it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. There can be both things, but we should never, and I don't want to make anybody think that I was doing this, we should never discredit or discount the incredible traumatic, terrible things that some people have to deal with. Just because it's not in our lens doesn't mean that it doesn't fucking exist.
Yeah, I'm not. Of course, I would say that there's a segment of the population that that I would call these people just attention. They just seek attention, and no matter whatever it is to get it. Like people claim that that the aliens abducted them and had sex with them. I mean, the people like this who you're referring to people who will see people struggling and then go and see them getting attention and join that movement for just for some attention. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but be honest with you, I'd rather them say that than it kind of, if somebody wants attention and they want to join a group of people who's suffering, I mean, whatever, man, come bring yourself, bring your resources, let's go, but I'm not gonna, I mean, hey man, yeah, there are people who like these right wingers like Charles Murray, Sam Harris, who say because I can't go on campus and speak about black people being inferior, because a lot of right wingers believe this. They'll say, well, I'm a victim. Well, see, to me, I think they're seeking attention. If anybody's doing pressure Olympics, it's the right. I'm saying, be personally, it's why I look, I say, man, in the country where millions of people don't have access to clean drinking water, and I just kind of see it as this is my perspective, as a guy who's seen suffering. I mean, I just kind of I see it as silly to me when somebody can even like it take it, the amount of ignorance takes my breath away, that you could some people, not saying you, that some people can come out and say it's the oppression Olympics. I say, man, I really wish I could see it that way. I can't though. I just can't. Maybe everybody comes with different perspectives, but for me to see it, I can't, man. I don't know. I don't even know how the thought generates in people's mind of that. I can't even, you know what I'm saying? I just can't even, I don't get it. It mesmerizes me that people can look at college campuses and say that there's an oppression Olympic. I can't even, like, it just, I don't know how that generated. I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's me. That's just me, man.
All right. So I'm going to ask one more question of my own. And while they're answering this, if you have any questions in chat, feel free to post them there. And as they're answering, I'll read through and we'll pull a couple from there for our last couple questions. But my last question, before we mentioned the multiple tactics of different leftists. And speaking of using the language of the right, is there any validity in using the language and rhetorical style of the right to pull in people to a sort of transitionary stage before they become, class conscious, quote unquote, woke or anything like that?
Oh, I would say, just man, radical empathy. That's what I would say. You need to develop some radical empathy. You need to see poverty as not as an internalized manifestation, as a more of a assault on somebody else. A lot of people, I can see me when I was a liberal. I would see a person sleeping on the street, and I'll say, man, well, maybe he made a bad decision. Maybe he made a bad choice in life. Well, too bad now. Get away from that, to understand that in the system of winners and losers, okay, losing can't be death. Losing can't be homelessness. It's make them just question what you mean by losing. What you mean by making a bad choice? Does a bad choice necessarily have to mean this? Like well, I think, people ain't perfect. And if somebody's come from people seek thrills everywhere. The homeless people want thrills just like the rich person. But the rich person won't have to ask for his misdeeds as much as the person at the bottom. So that's what I try to tell people, my family, my friends, is that I try to humanize homeless people first. Homeless people, I mean, Yeah, man. If you can, if homelessness doesn't bother you, I think try to get them to be angry about that.
Yeah, I really like that comment. And so a lot of people think that when you are trying to convince somebody that you're going to be able to do it right away, you're going to be able to do it automatically, that sort of thing, and it never works that way, right? So a great way to be able to move people from one position to another is to use a framework that they already understand. If you're not speaking the same language as somebody else, then you're never going to be able to communicate clearly. So I do think that there is a certain amount of use when you are talking about some people, when you use right-wing framing to be able to talk to them, to be able to convince them of certain things. When you're talking about positions like freedom, like equality, like strength, these are left-wing positions, but they're also positions that are heavily portrayed in right-wing circles. They do nothing more than just constantly go on and on. Freedom of speech, equality, that strength, that sort of thing. Less on the equality. They don't talk so much about equality, but they're very much about freedom. They're very much about strength, that sort of thing. So when you portray those sorts of things to an audience of centrists, sometimes right-wingers, you are going to gain a lot of people onto your side by using that sort of framing. Bo from the Fifth Column does this, and actually I think Bosch does this to a certain extent as well. Where they aren't necessarily, what they're saying is you could never distinguish it from being, you could never say that it isn't leftist. It's very, very much obviously leftist, but they're using it in a way that is palatable to the other 50% of the country, right? Like, you have a lot of people on the coasts. Absolutely, you do. Tons of people. But there's still large swaths of people in the center of the country. And even if they aren't right wingers, even if they're centrists, or even if they're slightly, if they're slightly left wing, they are going to respond more to a right-wing framing or to a centrist framing or to whatever type of framing you want to talk about, because that's what they're used to. That's what they've always seen their entire lives. And to try to explain things in an SJW way to somebody that's only ever heard this right-wing framing, they're not going to agree with you. They're not even going to understand what you're saying. They're going to get hung up on certain words. They're going to hear things like toxic masculinity, and they're going to get mad. They're going to get like, they're just not going to get it because they haven't had the time or the framing or the lens to be able to see life through a leftist way. So yeah, I absolutely do think that using that sort of framing for certain people definitely does work, and not using that framing for other people works as well for them.
Yo, yeah, man. If you gonna, I want to talk to Faraday. Shout out to him. But one thing I want to talk about, the right wingers is this. Number one, uh, what I can see from right wingers, you gotta get them to see people, human beings. What I see is the biggest barrier for a right winger into socialism is that, yo, man, black people, Hispanic people, gay people are human beings. Like, that's how bottom level that stuff is with right wingers. Like, I don't see how it's real simple. Do you think black people and Hispanic people are human beings? Like, we gotta start at that small level, man, because a right wing troll came in one of my live streams and he was trying to say black people and brown people ain't human beings. And I made the point that I say this is a right winger. He's speaking with, I mean, that's all you need to talk about. If you're talking to a right winger, don't even talk about economic policy. Just get them to see people as human beings. That's the number one barrier.
It is true, yeah. Like, a lot of people say that this is a right-wing thing, but I actually think that a lot of liberals feel this way as well, where their group of inclusion is extremely small. When it comes to right-wingers, it includes their family, their friends, their immediate relatives, maybe the people that live inside of their town, and that's it, right? Whereas a lot of leftists are able to expand that group of inclusion to include people that they've never even met, because we all have this joint understanding that the human condition is that of, we want to care about one another and see less suffering and that sort of thing. But I do actually believe that a lot of liberals have this tiny little little group of inclusion mentality as well, except for it's not necessarily to do with their race or their family. It's to do with their class, right? Liberals always will pay more attention to their little group of inclusion as long as they're a bunch of people within the same class, upper class usually. And that's basically their little version of the same kind of mentality as well.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Did you have one more point?
All I would say is this is very, this will probably be more, very controversial take, but me personally, I don't really feel that we should be demonizing liberals. Like, I personally don't, because as somebody who was a liberal, I just a liberal because I didn't know about capitalism. Like, I mean, not everybody goes to school like that. The people in Elizabeth Warren circle, supporters, Kamala Harris, whatever. They don't want an ethnic genocide. Okay, they're not the same as Trump supporters base. They just unaware of economic critique. They don't know anything about economics. Economics is not taught in school. I don't know if you know this, but half of graduating seniors in America don't know what the Civil War was about. So that's how I just say I don't think liberals are diabolically working, you know what I'm saying, to maintain fascism. I don't see it this way.
Okay, like I understand what you're saying, and I do agree to a certain extent. Though I would have to say that some liberals, a lot of liberals, specifically ones that are in the media, they're doing this kind of stuff deliberately. When you're talking about somebody that's apolitical or they just haven't understood the full context of socialism or the capitalist system or that sort of thing, I 100% agree with you, and I give those people a lot of leeway. Like I said, I don't like to group everybody into one group and say, this is the liberal. So yeah, that was a little bit of kind of painting everybody with a broad brush on my part. But when I'm talking about liberals, I'm for the most part talking about people that are like people in media, people that are deliberately people that are more or less deliberately more capitalist leaning. That takes the higher tier rather than the social justice aspect of it or the socialism aspect of it. That's what I think somebody that's a liberal more or less is and does, is they focus more on the capitalism part of classical liberalism or liberalism, however you want to look at it, and they focus less on freedom, equality, fraternity, brotherhood, that sort of thing. So if you find yourself talking to somebody that's more or less a capitalist and they're a liberal, that's the kind of person I was talking about. But yeah, I understand.
So Aaron, you'd say you kind of draw a distinction between like the proletariat liberal versus the bourgeois liberal.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So let's take some questions from chat. So Space Jockey, here's a pretty common one. Revolution or reform? Can revolution happen without cataclysm, and can reform work fast enough to avoid it?
That's a really good question. And okay, so I think that you could almost put revolution and reform for me sort of on like on a set of scales, right? On one side, I would say revolution definitely outweighs reform, but I don't discredit the importance of reform as well. You need to have a certain amount of reform to get us to a position where we can actually have revolution. And I think that spreading spreading class consciousness and that sort of thing is imperative for us to actually have a functional real revolution without it just devolving into this tore up hellscape where some despotic leader is just going to gain control like they always have before. I think that we do need a certain amount of reform before revolution, but I also believe that we should be trying for all those things because one specific tactic isn't going to get us there. We have to be fighting for all those things.
What I would say is that I want to see a global proletariat revolution, the likes the world has never seen before. Of course, I want to, I got both fingers crossed, waiting for it to happen. But I would say, on the global, I personally think revolutions should be happening all over. But some places like ours in America is that some people have some form of comfort. I would say that in America, you would need I would say the people who really are suffering the quote unquote underbelly of America, I think we do need a few more reforms where people are not literally dying because they dying because they lost their job. So I it's kind of hard to start a revolution when if the slightest misstep at your workplace ends in your death. I think we need just a few more. I think once we have more robust safety net, then all we concerned about is the boss and worker relationship. I think a lot like the strike, what is currently happening right now, and the biggest automobile strike in 10 years is over healthcare benefits. They're not striking over workplace conditions. I think we need, and it's kind of hard to folks. Like I told you, some place in America, I mean, it's food deserts. There is horrible infrastructure. That's not gonna be no revolution. They don't even know what's going on. Some places they're not even. Some places are so cut off from mainstream society that revolution, they don't even know what's going on. And I kind of see them as we need them people to be on board. We can't, think you need to yeah,
Yeah, and so whenever I think about revolution, I don't like to put it in the framework of like, this is the French Revolution, everybody start waving flags, and now we're going to take the owners and we're going to drag them out and we're going to chop their heads off. I'm not discrediting those ideas, but I am definitely saying that I don't think that revolution in a modern day is going to show itself in that way. I think we are currently in the beginning stages of the revolution. And I don't think that, and I think that we need to be framing it more or less that way, because we're starting to see this rise in socialism. We're starting to see this rise in the workers trying to get together to fight for collective bargaining rights, like you were saying with the strikers at GM, solidarity with everybody that's striking. Absolutely. I think that we're starting to see a lot of those things. And I think that we should frame the revolution more or less in those terms, rather than saying, oh, well, I hope that it happens one day. I hope that it eventually will come to pass. But there is no doubt, there is no question at all that we need to have certain reforms so people even have the fucking time to get out there and revolt and march in the streets and do all of that sort of thing. Because right now, everybody is so overwhelmed and so burnt out by this fire hose that has been opened up of information blasting in your mouth every single day, and your desire to want to do something, but your inability to do it because you're constantly overworked and overburdened and extremely tired and not eating properly. You need to have reforms to eliminate those problems that those people are having, so you can alleviate that suffering, so you can actually have the people get out there. It's an organized, orchestrated effort by the capitalist system and the billionaires and the state to oppress people to a point where they don't have the ability to fight. And that's where we're at right now, is they've put that so long that the ability to for us to fight has been almost taken away. And it's starting to show itself again. It's starting to actually erupt again, especially in the younger generation, especially in students. And we're even starting to see it with workers as well. So I think that that's fantastic.
Okay. I don't know if either of you would consider yourself part of this. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But someone asks, what can we do to make BreadTube more effective?
Oh, I got a good one. I was talking to a YouTuber about this, another YouTuber. This is a real simple idea. It's very expressive, but it's cheap. I would say that is that we create stickers, like, I would say first what we should do is go to any metropolitan area, put a banner up, says, you don't like capitalism, or you're not alone type stuff. We need to go to political conventions and people who are in that area, or go to rallies of people and hand out stickers, just small stickers with YouTuber's name on it, BreadTube. Hey, this is, hey, you're left wing. Well, we got some stuff that's really left wing. You wanna, what I'm saying, you really wanna defeat right wing, we got this for you. Just banners, stuff like that. In schools, any colleges out there, people get together with a local group and just put a big old banner up. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
I love that. That's fantastic. And you know what? I'm going to bolster that point by saying I think that propaganda and the spreading of propaganda is one of the main things that we need to be focusing when it comes to the BreadTube community and in socialist, Marxist, Leninist, anarchist, communist communities in general. And I think that we actually, to give a little bit of a spoiler to a video that I'm going to have coming out soon, I think that we already have a built-in way of spreading class consciousness and getting everybody out there to be able to spread that bread as far and wide as they possibly can using, well, their internet, right? How would we do that, though? How would we be able to get through that? Well, a great way would be to be able to spread socialism like some sort of disease. And it just so happens that something that spreads just like a disease is memes. Memes are able to be created, they're able to adapt, they're able to reproduce, and they're able to spread themselves all across the entire internet. They use the internet basically as a transmission device. So I think that personally, I believe that the best way for us to strengthen BreadTube and to strengthen socialism in general is to start pumping memes as much as possible. And the interesting thing about memes is it's not necessarily just about making them, it's about evolving them as well, because memes are very much a kind of entity that doesn't just exist as a static art form. It gets built upon by the community. It's kind of like a social project as well as an art project at the same time. So as long as more people are getting out there and making memes, editing memes, producing new memes, and creating evolutions to memes that already exist, I think that we could actually, if we're doing it intentfully, just like the right has been doing for many years, then we can actually see a push towards gaining a lot more class consciousness. And I think that's something that we need to be focusing on a lot more. Do I think that memes can save the world and start the revolution? No, but I also think that it's something that all of us can be doing, whether or not we can get out there and actively be in the streets or not. Your grandmother can do it from her desk. So I think that's definitely one way to do it.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on on the end here. So if you two want to reiterate who you are, where people can find you, yeah, go.
No, I was saying, did he cut off? I don't, but yeah, man. Yeah. I'm a propagandist. I think we need more artists, more comedians, more people in the entertainment sphere, um dropping them anti-capitalist, anti things like that. I try to make jokes about it. I try to make, you
Oh, I think I think we
video
lost
maybe.
him.
Yeah, I think the video is frozen. Just in the meantime, I'll tell you who I am. So I'm Aaron. My channel name is called Reeducation.
wait.
Definitely check me out on YouTube and Twitter. Oh, and I think that you're back. Okay. You got cut off, so we couldn't hear the end of what you were saying.
Everybody good? What was up?
It's coming through choppy, but I think that you're live now.
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Yeah, I'll just keep going until he's able to get his stuff together. So yeah, like I said, check me out on YouTube at Reeducation. Definitely check me out on Twitter at Professor Darwin. It's totally different from every other thing. I'm not going to explain why. It's a long story. And also check me out on Instagram. I believe that's Reeducation as well. So lots of different places that you can check me out. And like I said, I'm an anarcho-communist. I do all kinds of work, try to explain different ways that we can go about doing praxis, and different ways that we can find solutions to regular people's problems within a socialist framework. So that's basically what my channel is all about. And I hope you all check it out, and I hope you all subscribe if you are hearing this message.
All right, I'm gonna give my okay. Look, y'all. If you look, come to my channel, and you're going to be immediately hit with raw, hard-hitting, anti-capitalist messaging. I consider myself a showman. I'm an entertainer. You're gonna laugh, have a fun time. Also, I do have a math degree. I'm not saying I'm brilliant or whatever, but I can break it down in a very way that you may not have heard before. Very, very much, my goal is to have 100 million subscribers. Come on my channel. It's a community. Go to my Patreon, giving poetry $5. You get my poetry. My poetry's hitting you upside the head. I do skits with my voice. I just use my voice, but I got a mouthpiece on me, and I do voice acting. I do skits, all that. Leftism will take over YouTube.
All right. Okay, so can we get a round of applause for our two opponents here today? This has been amazing. Thanks for surviving the bloodbath. If you'd like to appear on the next Debatey McDebate Face, check out the channel in the Discord at weareserfs.com. I'm CyberWitchLexi. You can find my stuff at CyberWitchLexi anywhere and everywhere. Thank you, everybody. This has been a lot of fun.